The G7 has traditionally been a space for economic cooperation, but what about security cooperation? What have we seen so far coming out of G7?
The Japanese government came out with a document about the priorities for the G7 summit, and there's two areas in particular that I think we should know. Is one is obviously the big one, which is maintaining the international order based on the rule of law, and the other one is reinforcing engagement with the so-called global south. And I think the first one in particular includes like opposing unilateral changes to the status quo by force, but I think the emphasis this time is that it's anywhere in the world, so it's not just about Russia and Ukraine, but it's also alluding to China and Taiwan. And it's also going to focus, obviously, on the Russia's threat of use of nuclear weapons, which again is a big topic given the current situation. And in terms of the Indo-Pacific, I think the G7 foreign ministers meeting in April showed that this is going to be a focus going forward.
And what about the influence of a collective threat from China and Russia?
Focus so far has been on Russia, obviously, because of the situation in Ukraine. But I think you'll see in the previous leaders' summits and also the foreign ministers meeting that there's a lot of focus on China recently. As you said, it's because they're both challenging what we would call the existing international order. So I think the focus there will be obviously to impose more severe sanctions, but also to make sure that third parties cannot kind of help Russia evade those sanctions.
Recently, we saw plans for NATO to open a liaison office in Japan, and we're seeing more European nations be more engaged in the Indo-Pacific. Is this a trend? Are we going to see more of this?
While there are questions about European countries, like what they can actually contribute given the geographic distance with Asia and the resource constraints that each country faces, I think it's a welcome trend that they're also trying to get involved in the Indo-Pacific, since, countering China is not something that can be done by a country on its own. And I think the point to stress here is that there's a growing understanding that the security of the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific is closely connected or inextricably linked. NATO's 2022 strategic concept states that the Indo-Pacific is an important region and that it wants to strengthen dialogue and cooperation with new and existing partners.